Welcome to the Seattle Sports Union podcast. My name is Abraham DeWeese, back again with the Soulman Brian Solack and the SoCal Seahawk. Rob English on the boards, of course, is that damn dirty duck Matt Paige. Welcome to our top 10 Seahawks list. This show, we're just going to list off our personal favorites. We're not going to go into who had the most stats, who had the most touchdowns, who tackled the most Walter Payton running backs out there, right, Brian?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Just don't say Brock Heward or I'm going to hang up on this feed.
Brock Heward, is he on? I don't think he's on anybody's list for anything ever.
I guess joke.
Maybe tallest Husky quarterbacks. Anyway, let's get on with the show, and we'll start with Brian. We'll start with you.
All right. My number 10 pick is a running back. His name is Sherman Smith. The Hawks drafted him in 1976. I saw him. My dad took me to a game because Walter Payton was playing for the Chicago Bears. And what I remember from that game besides that is the fact that Sherman Smith was just tearing it up all over the field. And he went on to have a decent career with the Seahawks, and he ended up being a running backs coach as well down the line. But that's my number 10.
Right on. I'll throw mine out there. Tua Mealy, for 10 years with the Seahawks. He just couldn't get replaced. They tried everybody. They tried Jeremy Stevens, Christian Foria, countless others, and just couldn't figure out a way to get rid of him. I really love the guy out of BYU. Had in my opinion, the total package. He could block, catch, do everything. Just never got any love from the fans or from the announcers. Oh well, he's one of my top favorites. Rob?
And that's a great pick, actually. Tua Mealy was awesome for the Seahawks. One of those guys that almost gets forgotten. You forget how good he was for us. My number 10. Again, hard to rank these. So they're not necessarily. I can't unequivocally say they're in this order, but I'm gonna go with my number 10 being Eugene Robinson. He was a great safety for us. Made all kinds of plays for us back when I was a kid. He was certainly one of my favorite players. I just remember, that guy he wasn't an Earl Thomas type of guy, but he was always opportunistic in his playmaking ability. We won't talk about what he did, his time after being a Seahawk, but my number 10 guy is going to be Eugene Robinson, great safety for us.
No Super Bowl references there, obviously.
Right.
Hey, so we got Matt on the boards. Brian, why don't you have his list of his top favorites? Let's go ahead and get his as well.
All right. Number 10 for Matthew Paige was the one and only left tackle, Walter Jones, aka Big Walt. Matt just loves him just because he had such an amazing, strong career. He was always reliable. You never had to worry about, obviously running to the left side, whatever. I mean, he only had 9 holding penalties, which I actually never knew over his entire career, which is quite amazing.
An 11-year career, and he had 9 holding penalties.
Less than one per year. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But wait, he's number 10 on Matt's list? Isn't that a little low?
This is top 10 favorites, Rob. I mean, there's knowing Matt, the next one's probably going to be Steve Hutchinson, and then it's going to be nothing but offensive and defensive linemen. So Joe Nash, Edwin Bailey, that's what I'm guessing. But we'll see here pretty soon. Well, actually, I've already got a real good guess that at least one Oregon Duck will be on his list. Anyway, let's go to our 9th favorite. Rob, who's your 9th favorite Seahawk?
I'm realizing as I'm going through my list, it kind of goes from old to new, which I suppose makes sense. My 9th favorite, I'm gonna have to go with Brian Blades.
Oh, yes.
Brian Blades was a great I think undervalued or underrated receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. I think he was a lot like Bobby Ingram was for us. He wasn't a huge guy, wasn't super fast, but he ran great routes and had sure hands. Great receiver for us. So Brian Blades was huge in the 90s for us. That's my number 9 pick.
I believe University of Miami championship in 87 on that 87 team. I believe it's the 87 team. And I think he had gosh, what's the name of the receiver? Anyway, that was a stacked Miami team, and they like their entire offense were drafted in the NFL, and and he was awesome. I agree with you, and I think Rob, maybe because he played on a bunch of losing teams, he didn't get any television coverage. Maybe
Right.
that's my only
Yeah,
guess.
the Seahawks weren't very good during that time, his time in Seattle. So you only get to be a hometown hero when you play for a team like that.
All right, my number 9 is John Kitna, quarterback out of Central Washington. Got a shot on the team because a friend of a friend knew Dennis Erickson, like walked Dennis Erickson's dog or something. I have no idea. But in 1999, I remember him taking over, and that was the year that Vinny Testaverde had the helmet touchdown, and we should have been in the playoffs. Oh, now I'm doing what Brian did. I'm talking about a player that's not on our team. But 3,000 yards, 23 touchdowns that year. Went on to Cincinnati and became even more, more of a force. And I really, really liked him a lot. What do we got off of Matt's list there, Brian?
We got Cam Bam Bam Chancellor was Matt's number 9. He just appreciated what an enforcer he was on and off the field, and no one seemed to catch anything without paying the toll that Cam would impose on them. So Cam Chancellor, number 9.
All right. Let's move. Oh, wait, did we get your 9th, Brian?
Nope.
Let's
We
get
sure
yours.
didn't.
Don't leave Brian, the soul man, out.
My number 9 is the man out of Milton College, non-drafted free agent Dave Craig. Played 19 years in the NFL, majority with our beloved Seattle Seahawks. I just love the fact that he just hustled every day. I think there's 2 or 3 seasons where he played every game, and he was always there. I mean, he had these short hands. He led the league in fumbles probably half of his career, but he would also come back and on the next drive and throw an 80-yard play fake to Daryl Turner in 1984, for example, or screen. I think he's the last quarterback who actually execute a screenplay for the Seahawks, because he used to have many to John L. Williams. But yeah, my number 9 is definitely Dave Craig.
Old Mudbone, right?
Yep.
Yeah, his by the time he finished with who did he finish with, the Arizona Cardinals or the Bears? Anyway, after he finished his career, he was in the top 10 in every significant QB stat of all time. I mean, it was amazing. Like, he had the 6th most yardage. He's up in the top in TDs. I think since the proliferation of the passing game, he's been kind of pushed down a little bit. But his career was amazing. I agree with you. All right, let's move on to our number 7 pick. I'll get this one started.
Or 8.
I am choosing Max Strong. Yes, Max Strong, because we don't have fullbacks anymore, apparently. And he was quite the fullback out of Georgia. 14 years, and amazingly enough, in year 12 and 13, he was Pro Bowl. He's a Pro Bowler, and definitely part of that 2005 team that should have won the Super Bowl. But anyway, that's my number 7. How about you, Brian?
Are you okay if I go with number 8, or you want me to jump to number 7?
Did we skip 8?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, go with number 8. Let's do that.
Okay.
That whole math thing is
the whole math thing is off today.
That's all right. My number 8 pick is if you guys remember back in the 80s, Fred Young, linebacker. I believe 84 was his first year. The guy was just insane on special teams. I think he got 2 or 3 Pro Bowls just because of that. And he was a decent linebacker, but he's more of a special teams guy. And he just always stood out. It seemed to be an inspiration on that team on and off the field. So Fred Young.
How'd you feel when he got traded to the Colts?
I was a little disappointed, but when I think we got 2 first-round picks or something back-to-back years. So
yeah.
After that,
my dad tried to say, like, it's a really good deal, and I'm like, nope. that's Fred Young with 2 D's. Fred did.
Yep.
Fred did.
All right, number 8, Rob.
So somebody mentioned John L. Williams a moment ago, and he's definitely on that list for me, but he's good honorable mention. But I'm going to go with one Chris Warren. Chris Warren was a great running back for us in the 90s. I think he was quietly one of the better running backs in the league. Was it from 92 to 95, he rushed for over 1,000 yards each of those seasons. That run first. I think for me, Chris Warren's time in the league was where Seattle got that run first attitude that we really still have today. That West Coast offense. So Chris Warren is definitely my number 8.
Yeah, that was an interesting period because you had Chris Warren, big back. Who was the guy for the Rams?
Marshall Falk.
Oh, I guess he was also with Pittsburgh. Jerome Bettis, right?
Jerome Bettis. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And was he with the Rams? I felt like he was with the Rams too. But anyway,
he was.
You also had guys like Christian Okoye, Barry Word, Terrell Davis, late 90s. Tons of great running backs. I kind of miss those days.
Absolutely.
And thanks, Matt, for the message. Yes, it was Jerome Bettis who started, then went to Pittsburgh. Speaking of Matt, who does he have on his list?
He has former quarterback, not Taco Wallace, but Seneca Wallace.
Taco Wallace. That's right.
Matt just loved how incredibly dynamic on and off the field he was, and wonder why he never became a wide receiver. I met him at a signing event when Matt was like 2 years old, and it was extremely nice to Matt. So that is number 8.
Yeah, that was Matt when he was 2 years old. He was likable. Just went downhill after that. Anyway, the Seneca Wallace, yes. I believe Holmgren was the one that said, I remember a conversation. Holmgren said that he sat down and talked with Seneca Wallace and asked, do you want to be a quarterback or do you want to be a wide receiver, punt returner? And he's like, I want to be a quarterback. Then he's like, you need to be 100% a quarterback then.
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
Of you taking snaps over here and doing that. If you want that career, you have to be 100% in. That was pretty cool. Anyway, number 7. So I switched them around. I gave you my number 8. So I gave you my number 7. I'll give you my number. Anyway, here we go. Number 7. Stop trying to over-explain it. Rick Booten Tootin, 1992, led the NFL in punt attempts and yards, and the former Miami Hurricane was the offensive player of the year for the Seattle Seahawks. That tells you everything you need to know about 1992 when your punter is your offensive player of the year. Rob?
Well, ironically, I was going to go with Rick Tootin. So as to not just double down on as to not double down on a player, I'm going to replace him then, and I'm going to go with David Hawthorne, linebacker. I think that he was an awesome linebacker for us. This is during the just previous era of Seahawks, our ugly uniforms that we had. My least favorite version of our uniform. No, it was a very sure tackler. Made a few great plays for us. At opportunistic times. David Hawthorne was great. I can't remember where he. Did he come from? Did he come from Philly or did he go to Philly? I'm not sure where he. I feel like Philly has something to do with him in his career before or after Seattle. But either way, yeah, David Hawthorne was a great linebacker for us.
Right on, Brian. Over to you.
My number 7 was going back again to the early 80s. Dr. Dan Dornick, looked like a fullback, but he was a running back. Just how durable he was. He was here 7 or 8 years, but my favorite memory of him was watching Monday Night Football. He took the swing pass. I believe it was from Jim Zorn, and he went 80 yards against the Chargers for the touchdown in the Kingdom. I mean, I was watching with my dad. We're just going nuts. Yeah. And ever since, he's one of my favorite players, just watching him. I mean, later on when Kurt Warner in the mid-'80s got hurt, Dornick came in and just filled the job. And the guy just seems like a decent all-around dude.
I want to say, 84? Kurt Warner went down because of the knee injury on the turf.
Yeah, that's right.
Dornick was the main running back. Was Sherman on that team too? Sherman Smith?
Maybe is one of his last seasons,
Okay.
possibly.
Yeah, I feel like maybe he was. They did kind of like a tag team approach to it, but
Yeah.
definitely. Who does Matt have?
Matthew Paige has safety Eugene Robinson. That was Matt's favorite player as a kid, and he was undrafted. He just loved his work ethic on and off the field. So Eugene Robinson.
You guys went with Eugene Robinson and not Kenny Easley, huh? Okay, all right, fair enough. Well, Rob and Matt might
great. Easley's great, but again, we're not talking about best player. It's favorite player, right?
It's favorite. That's right. All right, let's move on to what do we have? 6.
Number 6. Yep.
Right. I'll go first. I'm going to choose Paul Scansey. The former UW Husky is the answer to the trivia question. When Dave Craig should have been sacked for an 8th time, who caught the game-winning touchdown? And that was Paul Scansey. And he had 5 solid seasons. Former Husky, had to get one on the list, and was a great number 3 receiver. Brian.
My number 6 is the one and only Kenny Easley, 1984
There we
Defensive
go.
Player of the Year. One tough son of a gun that guy was. He was just so fun to watch on the field. He seemed to be in every play, and unfortunately he ended up, his career died because he had, I think it was kidney issues, and got traded to the Cardinals in the mid 80s. And then eventually, him and the Hawks had issues over the last, 20 years. I was so glad when they reconciled the differences and put him in the Ring of Honor, and he finally got in the Hall of Fame there about 5 or 6 years ago. But the enforcer, Kenny Easley, for sure.
Yeah, that was a wild one because, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was an issue where they overprescribed him on.
That's right.
Some sort of pain. It might have been just aspirin, to be honest.
It was aspirin. I believe it was aspirin. Yep.
And it ruined his kidneys and shortened his career. A lot of people seem to think it was like injuries that ruined his career. There's more of that.
Definitely.
All right. And Rob?
My next pick is no one else than the one and only Brian Bosworth. No, I'm kidding. It's not Brian Bosworth. Just kidding. Actually, he might deserve a place on one of these lists, but no, I'm not going with Brian Bosworth. I'm actually going to go with Lofa Tutupu. Lofa Tutupu, another great linebacker for us. Definitely had that the vibe of what's the guy from Pittsburgh? The linebacker or safety from Pittsburgh, whose name is escaping me now, with the long hair, Islander.
Polamalu.
Had Troy Polamalu vibes, right?
Brian and I just left you dangling there.
Like somebody say his name.
We knew exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah, right. So you mention the hair, right? Definitely had Troy Polamalu vibes, just all over the field, making great plays for us. We would only be great to have another one just like him. Lofa Tutupu was an awesome linebacker for us, and also coached for us for a little while.
That's right.
So Lofa Tutupu.
Lofa Tutupu was a part of, I believe it's Harlan Williams, stand-up comedian, part of his routine, where actually it wasn't Tutupu, it was like Tutupu's dad, who played in the NFL a long, long time ago, where Tutupu's dad was a running back for the New England Patriots, and Manu Tuiasosopo, former Seahawk, was a part of Harlan Williams' routine. I can't do it as funny as he did it, but he talks about Tutupu getting tackled by Tuiasosopo, and then use like different TV announcers' voices and just make a giant routine out of it. And it's kind of funny because later on, Manu's son, Tuiasosopo, Marcus, played for the Raiders, and we played against him with Lofa Tutupu. And I was kind of hoping the two would meet and be intergenerational.
Right.
But I don't think Marcus ever got I don't think he got like a regular season game in, but that's too bad. I think he's coaching now. Anyway, Lofa Tutupu was great. Very short career though, Rob.
Yeah, short career. I remember, I don't remember, was it injury that shortened him, or did he just bow out after a certain point? I can't remember what it was, but he didn't play for a long time. I don't think he played for any other team. I think once he left the Seahawks, he was done.
Think about that defense, guys. 2005. How many short careers there were that were like impactful? Michael Boulware, like
Oh yeah.
he didn't last that long, did he?
Mm-mm.
Like he was just good for that 2-3 years stretch. Well, Ken Lucas had a different problem, right? That impact was a street sign over his head. Do you guys remember that during our Super Bowl run?
What? Yeah. Once you said that, I do remember that.
Oh no, that I blame. In addition to the bad reffing, had we had Lucas in there, I think we would have stopped that Heinz Ward pass for the touchdown. Because whoever our DBs or our safety was got totally fooled on that. And I don't think Ken Lucas would have been fooled, but that's speculation, neither here nor there.
Yeah, that play broke our back for sure in that game.
Yep. Yeah, the refs hit us with a street sign apparently. But anyway, who did Matt have listed?
Matt had legendary head coach of the Seahawks in the early 80s, Chuck Knox, also known as Ground Chuck, who was a firm believer in the ground game and something that the Seahawks still keep as part of their identity today. Just old school coach, had the right ideas about linemen and rushing. So Chuck Knox.
Yeah, you know what's funny about that though is he was called Ground Chuck, but the times where like Kurt Warner was injured, we opened up the playbook and passing team. There were a couple seasons where I think every season Craig had over 3,000 yards. And they were lighting it up. You mentioned a name earlier. Along with Largent, you had Daryl Turner.
Mm-hmm.
What was his nickname?
Oh shoot!
Was it Burner Turner or something like that, or Sweet Feet? Was that it? Something like that. Anyway, he was called a run first head coach, but I think that was a little bit of a misnomer, maybe a carryover from his days with the Rams. Because we seem to have a very balanced offense when he was here. And I don't remember, maybe because I was a kid, I don't remember being as bad as a couple of years ago with Pete Carroll, where first down it was run, every single play was first down run. You don't have to run on a first down every time. Anyway, moving to number 5. Why don't you get us started, Brian?
All right, my number 5 is our current announcer of the Seahawks, former wide receiver, drafted in 76, former guest on our podcast, Steve Rabel. I mean, just good guy. He always seemed to play his heart out, and eventually it led to him, having a career in Seattle, becoming the announcer. And I want to go back to 2010 playoffs where we had the Beastquake run, and just that announcement of that just cemented him as my favorite announcer football ever, ever in NFL. And Steve Rabel, he deserves some props. Number 5.
Yeah, I prefer his announcing of that run over the standard one that you hear from the television broadcast. Fantastic. And you're right, we interviewed him a couple of years ago, and I looked up a stat at Georgia Tech. Granted, this was like 1976 or something, but at Georgia Tech, his total receptions, 13.
Oh, dang.
In an 11-game season, he caught 13 passes. And I asked him on that show, why did they draft you if you only caught 13 balls? And I guess like he was a legit like 4.3 speed guy.
Yeah, he was.
Cool. Rob, how about you?
I am going to go with the man who, when we drafted him, we thought, at least I thought, and I think this was the thought of most, or of many, was going to be the player that took us over the top with the likes of his speed, was one Joey Galloway.
Yeah.
When Joey Galloway got here, I mean, I was for sure we were going to win the Super Bowl just because he got on the roster. He was super fast. He was a great return threat. You know, he had a little bit of a hands issue, if I'm not mistaken, at one point in his time with Seattle. But it never fully materialized into that superstar receiver we hoped he would have been. Ended up leaving Seattle and going to Dallas for a bit. But yeah, no, Joey Galloway was definitely like, I was all about, you couldn't talk about the Seahawks without me talking about Joey Galloway during that time.
Yeah, I thought Joey Galloway and Sean Springs were the Dennis Erickson mold. And I thought that 98, is that when Galloway got here? 97, 98, somewhere in
I
there?
think it was 97, 98, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought we were on to good things, and something was just missing from that team. I don't know what it was, because Warren Moon was still capable. You know, we had Ricky Waters was coming in. I thought it was all coming together, and for some reason it never did.
Right.
All right, mine is Bobby Wagner, and out of Utah State, 6 All-Pro seasons. Probably should have more. Never had a fewer than 100 tackles in a season. A better linebacker than the guy out of Carolina, Luke Kuechly. Yeah, it's true. He's a better linebacker than Luke Kuechly. Luke Kuechly got all the coverage, and I know out there Matt Paige is probably agreeing with me somewhere. But you know, Bobby Wagner, I think, was a victim of being on the Legion of Boom, and it's like he got bigger personalities, and he never got his just desserts. And I think that his return this season will stabilize the defense. I'm not saying he's going to be, you know, 2013 Bobby Wagner, 14 Bobby Wagner, but he's better than what we had, you know, last season. So, yeah, I'm excited to have his leadership back. Who did Matt Paige have, Brian?
Matthew Paige had former center out of the University of Oregon, Max Unger.
I thought that was going to be his number one. I really.
He says it's not just to spite Richard Michelson. Max was traded in one of the worst trades ever in my lifetime, but he's also one of the finest centers ever to watch in an NFL football game.
Any reactions to that, Rob or Brian?
No, it's a good pick. It's a good pick. You can't, I mean, if you're going to talk about greatest players or your favorite players, if you value the guys in the trenches, you're gonna have to talk about Big Walt, and you gotta talk about Max Unger, and you gotta talk about Hutchinson. So if you value those guys that are down there doing the dirty work, for sure, it's an awesome pick.
I could have sworn the entire list would have been offensive linemen for Matt. But, he's doing a good job of separating it out. I haven't really looked at the list, Brian. Is it just former Oregon Duck players from here on out? Is it Walter Thurman on there next?
Actually, no, I don't see any more Ducks on the list. So.
Okay. All right. So he's doing a good job of spreading it out. Let's go number 4. I'll kick this one off because this is the first football jersey I ever bought. Michael Sinclair, defensive end out of Eastern New Mexico. He had 3 double-digit sack seasons. And he's my litmus test to find out if people are actually Seahawk fans. Sometimes I just throw out names just to see, you know, if a person was a Seahawk fan from way back in 2013, you know, or actual Seahawks fans. And my bar is you have to know who Michael Sinclair is. And even if you weren't born yet, you have to know who that is. Like, you have to know your history is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And whereas Cortez Kennedy, going back to what I said at the top of the show, is a better player, Michael Sinclair was my favorite on that defense. Rob, over to you.
I'll see your Michael Sinclair as far as litmus test, you know, of Seahawk fanhood. And I'll raise you one Carl Lester Crumpler. I think that he was. So we talked about Etula Mealy being that player that we were unable to really replace, you know, at the tight end position. Carlos or Crumpler was great for us. And he actually had a brother, I think, who played in Atlanta, Algie Crumpler. I just remember Carlos or Crumpler coming up big for us. I mean, in not the most, you know, exciting of ways. He was just a good, solid player on that offensive line. Caught the ball when it was thrown to him. Yeah, Carlos the Crumpler was great. And again, and to your point, Abe, if you want to talk to me about Seahawk history, if you don't know Carlos the Crumpler, I don't really have time to talk to you.
I hope, Ryan, you've got a similar type name here at number 4.
Maybe later on in the show, but right now my number 4 is Jim Zorn, quarterback.
Well, you have to know who Jim Zorn is if you're going to call yourself a Seahawk fan. So
True.
true. I mean,
anyways, known as the Rabbit, the Master Scrambler, the Zorn to Largent. I mean, that's the catchphrase in Seattle for like 6 to 8 years. I mean, such an amazing deal. But I guess my only other memory is Zorn, which I appreciate to this day because I'll still see the commercials on the internet. Those milk commercials he used to do with Steve Largent, those are, if you haven't seen them, Google it. They're pretty entertaining. And but Jim Zorn was just big in the Seattle community too. He's just an all-around good guy. So Jim Zorn is my number 4.
Also former Seattle Dragons head coach.
That's right.
Yeah, lefty, and he was a scrambler. But I'm going to be honest, in 83, maybe, whenever Craig took over, I was more of a Craig guy than I was a Zorn guy.
Understood.
But yeah, Jim Zorn, also known as the guy who got hired as a QB coach for Washington. And then
that's right.
like,
The Reds.
Everybody got fired, and then he got elevated to head coach without ever coaching one game. The Redskins had a terrible season, and then I believe he was fired. Is that right? Like, it was the most Washington Redskins thing to do. Just Dan Snyder. They finally got rid of him, right? That the owner of the Commanders.
Yes. I thought there's a new owner this off season. I thought there was.
Dude, it's just comical how bad they've been. They're like the Seattle Mariners of. Anyway, Matt sent a message. It's not final yet that Snyder's out, but he needs.
Okay.
The Commanders aren't going anywhere as long as he's owning that team. Speaking of that, who did he have on his list?
Number 4, fullback Max Strong, best fullback ever the Hawks have had. Matthew Paige is a huge fan of fullbacks, and Matt Strong stands out amongst one of the best of the century, as it seems like the position nowadays is less prevalent.
Yeah, I actually was trying to figure out, like, do I put Max Strong, and by the way, I have another fullback on here, or do I take Strong out and put Coleman in? Because it was Coleman, 2013 fullback.
Mike Robinson.
No, the deaf guy.
Oh yeah, Coleman. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh my God, we could have included Michael Robinson too. I totally forgot. We've had a lot of good fullbacks, but I thought the Coleman story was just really, really good. I mean, not being able to hear and playing at the top level, of a sport where you kind of need to hear what the quarterback's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic, and I love the Super Bowl ad that he got. I don't know, just made me feel nice and warm and fuzzy on the inside.
Sure,
I really liked his story.
Feel good story.
All right. Speaking of fullbacks, as we go to our third spot, John L. Williams out of Florida. He had about 5 years in a row where he had over 500 rushing yards and over 500 receiving yards, and it was something that wasn't done at the time. And then the Arizona Cardinals would have a fullback named Larry Centers. That would kind of be like John L. Williams plus, but I feel like John L. Williams was there first. And, Roger Craig of the 49ers, he caught a lot of passes, but he was like a tailback. This is an actual fullback, receiving the pass, and he could do it all. He could block, he could run. I don't know if he could pass, but he could do whatever was needed. And he was the answer to our problem with being able to dink and dunk out of the backfield, and I really enjoyed that. Who'd you have? Rob?
I'm gonna go ahead and come a little get a little more recent here, and I'm gonna go with Angry Doug Baldwin. You know, Angry Doug Baldwin. He just I mean, another quietly great player for this team. It wasn't until he was already almost done that he actually started getting the notoriety that he deserved. Had over 1,000 yards a couple of times with this. I think two or three seasons with over 1,000 yards. And just knew how to work perfectly with the type of quarterback that we had with Russell Wilson. That backyard football style, like Russell's going to do his thing. You go out there, get open. If the ball gets to Doug Baldwin, he's going to catch it. Very few drops. Doug Baldwin was just great. And underappreciated in this league, I think.
Definitely a leader as well. And it's fascinating because I believe it was Chris Carter, former Vikings receiver, called Doug Baldwin a pedestrian wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
But when we saw Golden Tate go to Detroit and become a superstar, it was pretty clear if you play wide receiver for the Seahawks, you're going to get about 20, 25 fewer receptions a year, just based off the way the offense works. And
right.
I think that's where it hurt Baldwin. Is he was every bit as good as all those other receivers, but he was undrafted, so that's a strike against him. And then he played on an offense where he just didn't get the ball that often. And
absolutely, I think it goes to show you. I mean, to your point, even remember we brought Deion Branch over, and Deion Branch was a great player in New England. With Tom Brady throwing the ball in a vertical offense there, it's a pass heavy offense. Come to Seattle, and you could almost call him quiet.
Yeah.
Ironically, he went back to New England and had big numbers again after he left Seattle. So, to your point, receivers, I wouldn't say receivers come here to die, but you come here to be a role player, not a superstar.
Yep. I mean, same thing you could say about Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, right?
Mm-hmm.
On other teams, they're probably getting, again, 20, 25 more catches a year. So.
Right.
Who do you have, Brian?
Number 3, go back again to the late 70s, early 80s. Kicker Efren Herrera. Besides kicking field goals and extra points, the guy was master of the fake field goal. They had him coming out of the back, doing the fake and coming out of the backfield and catching passes on Monday Night Football of all places. And he made key blocks here and there. I mean, he's so fun to watch. I mean, just watch Monday Night Football and listen to Howard Cosell get all excited. Just brought back one of my favorite memories. So Efren Herrera, my number 3.
Head coach Jack Patera would call those plays basically on a whim. He's like, feels like a right time to have a fake. So he was hard to figure out for other coaches.
Oh, definitely.
Who did Matt have?
Matt also had Angry Doug Baldwin. Pretty much, same reason, pretty much as SoCal. He's just probably one of the most underrated wide receivers of the 2010s and just one of the best out there. Didn't get enough credit deserved.
We're going to do our top 2. Before we get there, for each of us, was there a guy you left off the list that is the greatest, but you're just like, I just can't find a spot for him on here? For example, I'll start off. Steve Largent, greatest receiver up until Jerry Rice, right, of all time. And then, but I just couldn't find a place to put him on the list because similar to Cortez Kennedy, like I like Brian Blades a little bit better because I grew up with Brian Blades. I knew him, whereas Largent was already entrenched by the time, he was already great by the time I started watching football, in the 80s. And Brian Blades, I'd watched him in college and I could, follow his career like that. And same with Paul Scansey, who did make my list. I watched him at UW and he became one of my favorite Seahawks. How about you guys? Is there somebody left off the list that, he's great, but just wasn't able to make your list?
I left off. I mean, to your point, it's like low hanging fruit, right? You can't just call it. I mean, who's not a better? How can you not put Larger on the list, right?
Right.
My guy is Russell Wilson. I mean, he's the best player the Seattle Seahawks have ever had, my opinion. Just for pound effectiveness, a contribution to the team, my opinion, Russell Wilson is the best player we've ever had. So you can't talk about the Seahawks without talking about Russell Wilson. First Super Bowl the franchise has ever known, only Super Bowl the franchise has ever known. Russell Wilson's my obvious one that you leave off that list.
How about you, Brian?
Mine is Cortez Kennedy, the best defensive lineman ever to play the game in our generation, in my opinion. I mean, nothing bad to say about the guy, but it wasn't my favorite, but he's definitely would have been number one if we were doing one or two, if we were doing the top 10 best Seahawks of all time.
Yeah, I feel bummed that I left off Cortez Kennedy, but again, I had to put Michael Sinclair on there because I think a lot of people were like focused on Cortez, and I'm like, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to find a guy that I like, who's lined up right next to him. And so Matt left us a message here that his person that he left off was GM Randy Mueller, former guest on the show as well. Randy Mueller brought in a lot of good players. That's for sure. Brian, Randy Mueller, is he the president of the Dragons? Is that
like the director of operations for the Dragons? But yes,
gotcha.
Yeah, same thing in my eyes.
All right, number 2. Let me kick this one off. Rufus Porter, Brian, Fred Young, Fred Young kind of clone. A little bit smaller Rufus Porter out of Southern, 2-time Pro Bowler, 2-time double-digit sacks, and you could chant Rufus. Always fun.
Yep.
How about you, Brian?
My number 2 is legendary running back in my eyes, Kurt Warner, not because he was a great player, but the guy had a hard life. He got Dave Bowling, former guest of the show, wrote a book with him and his wife. They have 4 children. 2 of them are twins with autism, and they just go through every story in the book, how difficult it was, but how they worked together as a team, and it was so sad. But in the end, obviously, everything has worked out for him, and the guy is a positive Christian guy, and I just want to give him props. I mean, they also went through losing a child in labor too. I mean, they've been through a lot. So let me rephrase that: Kurt Warner and his wife. How about that? But number 2 for sure.
How about you, Rob?
Percy Harvin. No, I'm kidding. I'm throwing these cheap jokes out.
Golden Tate's favorite receiver too.
But a return man nonetheless. Leon Washington.
Oh yeah,
was awesome for us, right? Never. He wasn't a huge force. He was good, but in the return game, he was always liable to take something back, if not all the way, to certainly give us some good field position. I remember the game against the San Diego Chargers. I think they were still the San Diego Chargers at that time. At Seattle, was it in San Diego? I think it was at Seattle, where he returned 2, as a matter of fact. I think 1 kickoff and 1 punt, or maybe they were both kickoffs. I can't remember, but he had 2 returns in that game, which really ended up being the deciding factor. We won that game. Leon Washington was awesome for us, and he was just a show anytime the ball was in his hand.
It's one thing that's a little bit annoying about today's modern football. A kick return is one of the most exciting things in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But they just insist on getting rid of kick returns.
Yeah. Do you know the new rule now, right? The new rule is that if the ball is anywhere short of the 20, you can, for this year only, they're gonna pilot this rule where you can call for a fair catch and take it to the 20 or to the 25. If it's short of the 20, you can fair catch it and advance it forward.
Why not just outlaw the kickoff then? Why don't you just start thing at 25 or something.
Very strange. Very strange. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to pilot it only for the preseason or for this whole season, but they're definitely piloting it this year, and to see, in the interest of, player safety, I suppose.
I don't know. I mean, you said Percy Harvin. I mean, wasn't that kickoff return in the second half exciting?
So
Absolutely.
exciting. That was the moment when you knew you were getting ready to take on the Lombardi Trophy, and just being able to have that moment actually happen in that fashion. Oh yeah, nothing more exciting. There's nothing more exciting. It was so electric. It was what you need in football. And you take that away, what do you have left? I mean, all you have after that is turnovers return for a touchdown, and next thing you know, they're going to say, if the ball turns over, it's down where you picked it up, right? So
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Brian, did you get yours in?
Number 2, yeah. I'll do Matt's real
Matt,
quick.
what's Matt's?
Matt went with Dave Craig. Same reasons what we talked about earlier. Just in summary, he's the best ultimate blue collar quarterback when you look it up in the dictionary online. Definitely.
All right, big drum roll as we get to the close of our show here. Who's your number 1? Mine is Walter Jones, Florida State University, 11 seasons, 4 All-Pro, should be more like 10 All-Pro seasons. As per Matt's stat earlier, gave up 9 holding penalties in 11 years. And he definitely deserved, a couple years ago, on April 30th, they made it Walter Jones Day in the state of Washington. He deserves all that and more. Love that I got to watch his entire career as a Seahawk. How about you, Brian?
Wide receiver Steve Largent, not because he's one of the best ever to play the game, but because he was one tough son of a gun. Mike Harden, former defensive back for the Broncos and then other teams, long story short, laid out a cheap shot to Largent one game, knocked him out for like 5 minutes. And later in the season, Seahawks were playing the Broncos in the Kingdom, and Craig threw an interception and Harden got it. When he was running back, Largent came out of the blue and just smacked the living out of him, and causing a fumble where Largent recovered it. And later after the game, Largent even said that was his favorite play of his career, not one of his catches, but that actual day, that was his favorite play. So
Right,
Steve Largent.
I want to make one quick note on that, and it's something that we don't like to talk about, right? But that fumble wasn't really a fumble. We all know that.
Yeah, I know. The hit was the important thing.
True.
All right, Rob, who's your favorite of all time?
All right. So my top one, it has to go to more recent Seattle team. Marshawn Lynch. He became my favorite. He beat superseded some other names that probably would have been on that list, but during his time with his team, he gave us an attitude, he gave us an identity, and he talked he didn't talk much, but you knew what he was saying without him saying it, and we showed it. We lined up to run that football, and you knew we were going to do it, and there was nothing you could do about it. And because it was the beast back there, taking those handoffs from Russell Wilson. Marshawn Lynch, obviously the Beast Quake run really is what solidified his arrival to this team. And it continued from there. So definitely Marshawn Lynch has got to be, he's got to be with the favorite.
All right. And who did Matt have listed, Brian?
Matt had Cortez Kennedy for the obvious reasons we
talked
about.
He got on the list. Right.
and the fact that Matt even watched him during the dark times, just a wonderful man who was truly a terror for opposing quarterbacks.
That's amazing. I mean, you win NFL Defensive Player of the Year on a 2-win team.
Yeah,
that's got to mean something. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's the other thing about being a Seahawks fan. Sorry, any of you new Seahawks fans out there? I think to be a true Seahawks fan, you had to suffer the entire 90s.
Yeah. That's what I talk about all the time. Yeah,
that's the equity that you have to put into it to be a fan.
Right. Like you don't even get it. Like people who hate and they trash the current front office decisions. It's like, listen, just sit down and just watch the game. You don't know what it's like, right? Trust the process, because you weren't there for the 2-14 season. Okay.
Exactly. All right. Well, we always like to end the show on a positive note. Let's do some shout outs here. And you guys know how this works. I'm going to give a shout out to my dad, who's back in the hospital, but doing better, and hopefully he'll be out soon and back in his apartment. Shout outs, Rob.
You know what? I'm gonna give an easy shout out here to my 9-year-old daughter Maya. She has a loose tooth and she is totally excited about it. Now the last time she had a loose tooth, we did the whole we tied the string around the tooth and then tied the other end of the string to the football and had her kick it to knock it out. And that was an experience. It was hilarious. So I don't know how we're gonna go about this one, but she's got a loose tooth and she's totally excited about it. So shout out to her when that comes out.
Right on. And Brian?
Let's give a shout out to my wife Janine. We recently celebrated our 29th wedding anniversary. Happy anniversary, honey. I love you.
29. Wow. Did you guys get married when you were 7?
Thank you. Maybe.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us yet again at the Seattle Sports Union. Keep in touch with us on social media, on Facebook and Twitter at Seattle Sports U. As well, check out our newly redesigned website at seattlesportsunion.com. Keep listening to our podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Captivate FM, and now on North Beach Community TV, Saturday mornings at 11 on Channel 68. Once again, we thank you. We thank you for joining the Seattle Sports Union. My name is Abraham DeWeese. On behalf of Brian the Soulman Solack, that damn dirty duck Matt Paige, and the SoCal Seahawk Rob English, we will see you guys next time.